want to welcome you back to Thrive in the Word. We are so glad that you've joined us for this video. You know, if you would like to help us, all you need to do is hit that little like button there if you're on YouTube, and then subscribe to this channel. It will help us in our relationship with YouTube. It will help us be so that YouTube will actually take this video and they give it more importance. And so it would help us a whole lot. Then go ahead and share it with someone else. Share it with other people. How many of you know the Word of God is what we're teaching? And the Word of God changes lives. Do you got a friend that needs his life changed? Do you have a friend who's a believer and they're struggling with something? Introduce them to these videos, because you know what? We are committed to doing this one thing, and that is teaching the Word of God. And today we're in the book of Jude, and we're in verse number 16. Now, there's no chapters in Jude, but in verse number 16, Jude brings to a close this teaching, this admonition, I guess is even a better word, about false teachers in the church. Now, if you're a daily listener to these podcasts, you've already heard me say this, but Jude is teaching, and he's teaching about men who have said that the grace of God doesn't take away sin, but the grace of God gives you permission to sin. You know, that's a doctrine that's being taught in many churches today, that the grace of God is there, and so you can just go ahead and continue in your sin, and there's no consequence for it. Well, the grace of God is given to us, not to continue in sin, but to overcome sin. So that was one of the things. Then the other thing that Jude is taking to task here, and he's talking about, is eternal judgment. How many of you know eternal judgment is not everybody's favorite subject? You know, people want to talk about peace, and they want to talk about love and joy and hope and faith. But you know what? Eternal judgment is one of the 6 doctrines that's mentioned in the book of Hebrews. It's one of the doctrines that is a foundation stone. How many of you know that if a building doesn't have a good foundation, it's going to crumble? A storm's going to come, and it's going to cause it to fall. And so Jude has been talking about eternal judgment. Now, we're going to go into verse number 16. And again, he's talking about these people. Now, who are these people? He's not talking about believers. He's talking about people that have slipped into the church. And he says these people are grumbling. They're complainers. They're living only to satisfy their desires. They brag loudly about themselves, and they flatter others to get what they want. Ooh, what a description. You know what? You ought to take verse number 16 and use it as a glass, as something to see if a person is in your life. Are they constantly grumbling? Are they constantly, you know what grumbling is just the verbal expression of not thinking you have enough. You know, it's amazing to me how people who are wealthy, and by the way, almost every American is wealthy compared to the other people of the world, and they grumble. I gotta have more, I need more, I need more, I need more, I need more. How come they don't give me more? Give me more. You know, that's a sign that a person is in deception. Grumbling. They are constantly grumbling and complaining. They're constantly speaking out their unbridled lust, their unbridled desires for themselves. That's a sign that a person is speaking deception. So take that and look at it. Look at it as even for yourself. Are you grumbling? Are you complaining? Well, it's because of your selfishness. You understand? Now, I realize that these are hard words. But then Jude goes on, he says, living to satisfy their desires. All they're concerned about. They've given their life for one thing, and that is to satisfy myself, to satisfy my needs, my desires, to satisfy what I want. You see, at the root of deception, there are some core sins. One of them is pride. One of them is rebellion. And the other one is selfishness. Selfishness. I want it for myself. I'm going to do everything for myself. And you know what it is? It's a sign that a person is in deception. Instead of saying, I want to do it for myself, a believer says this, I'm doing this for Jesus. I'm doing this to reach more people. I'm doing this for other people. I'm doing it for God. I'm allowing the love of God to be expressed in my life towards others. So, living for yourself. And then he says they brag loudly about themselves. There's the pride thing. Pride being the root of deception. Pride. Look at me. Look what I've done. Oh, look what I've done. I've done this and I've done that, and look what I've done. You know what? When you say, look what I've done, you know what? You're drawing all of your attention to yourself. But you know what else you're doing? You're saying, I did it, instead of Jesus did it. You know, we talked in the past where Jude talks about Michael, the archangel, the mightiest of all the angels. But he wouldn't rebuke and say to Satan, you're blaspheming. But he did say this, the Lord rebuke you. What was Michael doing? He was submitting himself to the lordship of Jesus. We need to understand that all that we have done, we've done because of Jesus, not because of ourselves. And then he goes on and he says, and they flatter others to get what they want. Have you ever been around a person that just flatters you all the time? Just says, oh, you're such a nice person. Oh, and you know what? That's nice. And you know what? We need to do it as believers. But flattery, actually, it means empty flattery. It means to say something that's empty, not to build someone up, not to encourage someone, but to get control over someone. You know what? Let me ask you a question. Do you have one of these persons in your life? Do you have a person that's doing and fulfilling these things out of verse 16? You need to watch out for that person, because it could very well mean that person is in deception. And if they are in deception, they are trying to lead you to destruction, to a shipwreck of your faith. I hope this has blessed you. I hope you join us again next week. Hey, we got better news for you next week. We're going to talk about the faithful believers starting next week out of the book of Jude. Join us as we look and study through this wonderful book.